Welcome back, listeners, to the T.R.O.N podcast. This is your host, Rashad Woods, the Randomness and Nothing host. I want to give a very special shout out for the time she's carved out of her busy schedule. McCorvey, thank you so much, and what a fascinating journey you have in story to tell.
Thank you, Rashad, for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
I really do. I got to tell you, first of all, when you reached out to me and then I got a chance to listen to your accomplishments, your trials and tribulations, and ultimately your success and your story that you continue to tell, I was really inspired by it. And I'm really glad you carved out time to tell people on this show. So please talk about yourself, please.
Well, I really appreciate what you're doing, Rashad, to reach out to people that are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs. And if that's the case, then the one thing that I would start out with is you are an entrepreneur, if that's what you think.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I've lived a very nonlinear life. Mm-hmm. And what I would like to focus on in this particular program and for your audience is how I've lived that nonlinear life successfully. Mm-hmm. First of all, it didn't seem successfully all the time.
You hear that a lot sometimes from people I've interviewed, and obviously, it kind of finds itself along the way. So please dive deeper into that. Love to hear it.
Sure. So I became an entrepreneur when I was 19 years old. Mm-hmm. And that was my first foray into broadcasting. And I was a DJ in clubs before DJs were in clubs.
That's awesome.
Okay, that's how far it goes back. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome. I would have never thought you were a DJ. I say that respectfully too.
Well, thank you. I'm all about that, and I still love broadcasting, as you can see. Mm-hmm. And I have actually my own podcast, which I'd love to welcome you on sometime.
Thank you. I saw that too.
So the thing about entrepreneurism, and in particular, what I call curious insanity, is the founder space, right? So being a founder and being an entrepreneur are two very different things, or they can be. The reason why a founder is different is because the founder, and I'll talk about my particular cycle, right?
Right.
I conceive of an idea and I think about it and I ruminate on it. And one day, if it's right, a puzzle click will go clunk. And I'll say, yep, I know I have to do this. And so I make the decision to go down this path.
Got it.
And once I make that decision, then I gather the resources around me. I capitalize it. I build a team, and then I execute. So that is my very simplified cycle. And the difference between that and an entrepreneurial cycle is an entrepreneur has much greater talents than I do, and in fact can step into a company that is growing or not growing, and build it and grow.
Oh, wow. I never thought about the difference, to be honest with you.
Well, it took me a while. I'm a 7-time founder or co-founder.
Right.
And so for a while there, I was a little worried that I just wasn't committed enough.
I do understand.
I couldn't decide on one thing and then, go for that broke.
Right.
But the fact is that, especially with I do a lot of mentoring of founders and entrepreneurs. And I found a lot of them have the same issues that I've had in the past, which is, why can't I be able to adequately answer the question, what do you do? What is it that you do, Mary? And I, for so long, I was like, what day is it? I don't know, and it was really an awkward moment over and over again.
It's kind of humbling when you actually have to answer that question.
Very humbling. Yeah. It's very humbling and fraught with self-doubt.
Yeah.
Right?
I've had several of us ask me, like, what is the show about? And you're like, you start rambling and you're like, I haven't actually gotten the actual sentence of what I'm doing right now. But I hope if I say enough that somehow they'll put the pieces together. And then you're just like, oh my God, that was such a terrible explanation.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And, eventually what I came to understand is that it just happens that I thrive in the startup space. I thrive in the conception space. And so that's a very, very different skill set from running a business in its later stages.
Yeah.
And so I came to understand, okay, Mary, basically you've been given a gift. And I'm not talking about, I'm that brilliant, I've been given a gift. No, I'm not talking like that.
Yeah.
It's like you've been given the gift of understanding that where you fit in the scheme of life is in the founder space.
Correct.
And you grow something and then you step away and let somebody take over and move it forward.
Right.
And then you go do something else.
Absolutely.
For me, it's about a 3-year cycle.
Beautiful.
Right.
Beautiful. And I think knowing, like, and it's funny you said that, because it was almost like when I created this podcast, obviously you have your own successful businesses and you've done wonderful things, but knowing where your strengths are and knowing where your lane is and where your ability to grow and say, I can let that go. It also takes a lot of, like, pride swallowing in a way. And I've said this reference on previous episodes. It's like White Castle as a fast food chain. The reason they were the first fast food chain, ever in America. And the reason they've survived so long is because they never tried to compete with McDonald's. They stayed in their lane and they said, I'm cool with where I'm at. They're still family owned. They're not, they didn't try to scale beyond what they could do. Right. And that's the reason why they've survived all of these years, is because, hey, we're a totally different brand. We have a totally different niche. And I'm not trying to get into the Happy Meal business, right? Because you can just get swallowed whole. So that's a great, great learning lesson for people who are starting out, to just know where your strengths and weaknesses lie at.
Yes. And it's a very freeing realization. And that is a realization that I want to share with people that are like us.
Yes.
That find themselves at 4:00 in the morning saying, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Am I doing the right thing?
Right.
And along about 7:00, you say, well, I don't have any choice. I'm doing this.
For sure. Well, it's like this podcast, right? Like, okay, well, I don't have some of the experiences or the know-how to do what some of these people that I've talked to have done, but I've always been curious. So I said, okay, well, what if I watch documentaries, I'll watch, about sinking boats and just fascinating things, Discovery Channel, History Channel. So it just kind of dawned on me. I said, well, what if I talk to people who have accomplished things that can better use my curiosity to see, what did they do? How did you create that? How did you make that? How did that work? Where did this come from? How did that idea you thought of that kept you up late at night get to fruition? And that's why I have guests such as yourself, because I kind of found that lane for myself.
Well, there's two critical elements of the cycle, as I like to call it. And one thing is, you can have a great idea. A lot of people have great ideas. I would like to do so. What are you going to do? How are you going to make it happen?
Exactly.
And there are very, very few of us that actually make things happen from the notion of an idea and to actually execute. So the two components that I've found are really critical is that third component, which is resources. So I come up with an idea, I decide to do the idea, and then comes the rubber meets the road. You got to capitalize it.
Yep.
You've got to build a team.
Yes.
You've got to make the pieces come into place in order for you to be able to execute. Right? So that third element is so important because there are many sub-elements to it. Mm-hmm. So when you think about capitalizing a company, the first thing you think about is finding money, right?
Right.
How to make it happen with money. Right. And that's a necessary element, but it's not the only element at all. So I've come up with ideas that I know have business worth, like landing on the moon. I thought that was a great business idea, right?
Right. Well, the government, it's kind of hard to outspend the government when they have the plan and means to do it, right? It's NASA also, for lack of better terms.
Well, my idea was that we put together a competition between young people around the world to come up with a buildable lander that could race on the moon.
Oh, wow.
So they have to design it and they have to build it, and then it goes on a rocket, and then it lands on the moon, and then they race it from a remote distance.
That's fascinating.
Now, all of that is completely doable.
Right.
Am I a rocket scientist?
No.
No. Am I an engineer? No. Am I an astrophysicist?
Not at all.
No.
Not that I know of. You didn't have in your bio.
No, I'm none of those things. Right. So what that tells me is in a given situation, what you have to do if you choose to do something that is outside of your expertise. And I have always chosen to do things like that.
That's very
The
good.
things that I come up with as new ideas are never in the grand scheme of things. They are never
in your skill set.
In my skill set.
In your direct skill set, so to speak, right?
That's right. But what I'm very, very good at is that I'm very good at putting people around me that know what they're doing.
That's amazing skills.
Yes. Well, if you understand that strength about yourself, then you're 80% of the way.
Right.
The 20% is going out and finding the right people and finding the right money.
Right.
And by the right money, I'm talking about not just cash.
Right.
I'm talking about people, you don't have cash, you barter.
Right.
Right.
Trade-offs. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Unquestionably.
And you negotiate the best deals that you possibly can. And you align yourself with people who are willing to take a risk like you are. But at the same time, you understand the need for mitigating risk.
Of course.
So all those pieces come into play in the capitalization stage. And you put those pieces together and you have the ability to execute.
Well, it's funny when you put it all together, because I think a lot of times people kind of shoot from the hip, so to speak, and they figure out along the way. And one of the crazy parts things I think is ironic is that all the information that you spoke about is out there to make sure people don't trip over themselves. But people get so caught up in trying to just formulate the idea in their head, and they go on autopilot, that they don't take that bird's eye view to try to say, no, how is this stage working? Maybe I should talk to this individual. Maybe I need to pivot. It's almost like, in sports, there's a reason why there's positions in sports. It's because your better skill set is in a particular position and somebody complements what you do well, right? And so ultimately, if you want to get to be good at sports, a team sport, you do have to surround yourself with the correct teammates, because you can't do everything.
That's exactly right.
You just can't, right? It will come to a point where you're going to have to find the necessary people to have the proper complementary skills, and then be able to execute your final product. And it is like, doing this podcast, you can be a great interviewer, but a terrible scheduler, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be willing to have a person that's handling your appointments to make sure that you are a good host.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're right on target.
So I do want to touch on some other bases for you, because there's so much about you. You're a veteran, right? And you were in, the Gulf War. So first of all, thank you very much for your service. And you've overcome very, very tough things in life. So if you are willing to share that information, please do.
Sure.
Just like, I know you have experience in the military, and then you said you survived, like, sarin gas and things like that. So, I mean, like I said, I know that's traumatic and I don't want to make light of it, but I thought when I heard that you speak about it, I didn't know if that was something you want to speak on.
Well, I would like to speak about that. Thank you for asking, Rashad.
Of course.
So the experience that I had in the military was truly exceptional. It was a life formation for me. And I was in the Army when I was 18 years old.
Unbelievable.
I traveled the world. Mm-hmm. I got to know people and places and things that I would never, ever have gotten to know. Mm-hmm. It is something that I highly recommend to young people.
Beautiful.
Highly recommend. And those formative years took me into broadcasting and took me into media management.
Yeah. And
when I became a civilian, that's something that has continued with me to this day.
Wonderful. And, it's your story is so compelling. And then I went to your website and you have a book that's coming off. And I love the title where it says Experience Over Expectation. And I thought that it's a title that's catchy, because there's a difference between the experience of something is more important than what you had in your mind, because something valued in the moment that it was actually taking place, as opposed to what your thought of it could be, right? And I was like, that really resonated with me. And I thought that was very important. So can you talk about your book, please?
Sure, my pleasure. And I don't want to forget about the sarin gas exposure.
Of course, of course. I
Okay.
wasn't absolutely.
Because no, I know you weren't putting it aside, but I do want to share that what happened was that I was exposed to sarin nerve gas when a chemical weapons plant was blown up in Iraq.
Okay.
So nobody knew about it at the time, and that carried with me for decades. And I had Gulf War syndrome, and it impacted everything in my life, but it could
Oh my
not be
goodness.
diagnosed. And so I had PTSD, whatever it is that you want to call it. I had it in full.
Oh my goodness.
And it was not until literally 3 years ago, Rashad, that researchers were able to connect our sarin gas exposure to these symptoms. And so finally, after all these years, I was validated.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we all understood what had actually happened. But during the intervening years, it was really, really tough. And that gas exposure also led to a terminal illness that I have called pulmonary fibrosis. That is a joy, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh.
When doctors tell you, well, you have a progressive disease and here's the life expectancy. And so facing that and coming to grips with it and then continuing to live, all of it really tests somebody's resiliency. It certainly tested mine. Here we are on T.R.O.N. and, I'm doing fairly well. So I am blessed.
I always find it fascinating that, people that you walk past or you see, every single day could have had an experience like yours and you think you're having a bad day, so to speak, right? So it's very important that you don't know what somebody, it sounds cliched, right? But you really don't know what somebody else is going through. And so I thought that when I read that, if I saw your picture previously on LinkedIn, I would have said, I would have never known that that was your background and you went through all that. So it's a testament to your will and your spirit that you've conquered those things in life. And, I remember when I was in elementary school, no joke, we were writing letters to soldiers that were in the Gulf War. And here I am,
Oh my gosh.
honest to goodness. It was 92, I think.
90.
91, yeah, 91, 92, yeah. And I remember when I was in elementary school and we would write letters, and here we are, all these years later, I'm talking to you. And so it's kind of all kind of, whirling through my head, like what an experience just to even think about talking to somebody who went through that kind of experience. So
Yeah.
it's a testament to your will.
Thank you.
What exactly I saw too, in that you talk about, you have a shoebox full of love letters and you keep rewriting the script in life. So what's that all about?
Well, first, let's talk about experience over expectation.
For
Is
sure.
that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I ramble. I really do. Because I love
No,
to just.
you don't. No, you're good. You're right on point. I'm the one that rambles. So experience over expectation, let go of the plan and live on your terms.
Mhm.
That's the title of the book.
Right.
And it's based on my life and my nonlinear journey. So not only have I started and successfully run 7 companies, but this nonlinear path is one that I've followed since my early years. And it's one that I've learned a great deal from.
It's beautiful.
And what I really wanted to do was to share one person's answer to the question, what do you do?
Yeah.
And how do you answer that question?
Oh yeah.
And so you were mentioning before that enjoying experience over expectations that you may have in your mind about yourself.
Right.
Well, there's certain expectations that society has about you as well.
Absolutely.
And so it's a double down on the
Correct.
expectation side.
Right.
So we grow up in life and we think, okay, we go to college, we get the degrees, we get the great career, we marry well, we have kids.
Exactly.
We do some more career, we retire, and if we're lucky, we leave a legacy.
Exactly.
Right?
100% agree. 100% agree.
My life was never like that.
Yeah.
It was never like that. And I believe that most people's lives don't go through that path intentionally. They go through that path because they're conditioned to go through the path.
Right.
they're burdened by the expectations of others and unrealistic expectations about themselves, then what to do about that? How do you manage that?
Right.
And so that's why I started writing the book as a memoir.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Except then, somewhere along the way, I started continually referring to artificial intelligence. And by referring to artificial intelligence, what I mean is that I would go for references. I would go for historical references or context references.
Mm-hmm.
And what I finally woke up one day, Rashad, and I said, I wonder what it would be like if I put my story into AI.
Wonderful.
And ask it to analyze my life.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And that's what the book became.
It's Eerie. That's the program that you use, right? Eerie. I don't want to butcher that AI program that you used. I thought that
it's spelled E.
Yeah, I saw that. I wasn't sure how to pronounce that.
And that it's pronounced AI.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's pronounced AI because that's the name that I came up with.
That's awesome. I was thinking it was like EH. I'm like, okay, it didn't even dawn on me that that's what it was saying because I just read it, right? I didn't hear it.
That's okay. That is okay. So AI in this particular case is actually a combination of 5 different AI platforms. So we've got ChatGPT, of course. We've got Perplexity. We've got Sonnet. We've got DeepSeek. And we've got Grok. And so the AI component of experience over expectation is an amalgam of those 5 platforms for analyzing my life.
Got it. Was it kind of weird, kind of having something analyze it for you rather than actually you telling it? I don't want to say that you weren't doing it, but like when you saw it come out and you're like, did it come out in the way that you wanted it to? Was there some things that were omitted or needed cleaning up, so to speak, that you saw?
Well, the book has 40 pages of citations.
Wow.
40 pages of citations. Now, I'm not including those in the book. I'm including those as a QR code so that people can go and look at all of the citations. It is really amazing. So when I went down this path, I had no idea what to anticipate.
Right.
It was a matter of curiosity that I said, I wonder what would happen if.
Absolutely.
And Rashad, it was like I was validated through the whole process.
Beautiful.
It was like my decisions were, so the prompt, our secret sauce is always in the prompts, right?
Right.
And essentially to simplify the prompt that I gave it, it is analyze my story, my choices, and my decisions. Beautiful. Those are the 3 things: the story, the choices, and the decisions. And so that's what AI did on multiple levels on 5 different platforms. And then we combine them to come up with the analysis of my life, and also to come up with tools that people can use for self-assessment.
And I think a self-assessment, sometimes people get caught up in the everyday life. And I always reference from here on out, I think of one of my guests that I had, Brandon Barnum. He was a successful CEO of HOA.com. And he said something very important. He said, there's life by design and life by default. And when he actually broke down the 2, and this just because of the life you live, when you do by default, you get up, eat your breakfast, and start your car, and you just go through the motions. And you're not a bad person for that. That's not a person will dig on anybody.
Right.
But when you have a systematic design of how you want things to operate and function, you start taking that bird's eye view a bit more of how your day is going to go. This is what I'm going to eat. This is how I have my time carved out for things. This is how my schedule is going to be coordinated. This is how I'm going to have self-care. Even like booking this podcast, you have to have blocks of time off to have compelling guests and content. And so as a result of that, you start getting more organized and structured to have good, compelling conversations like this. And it matters when you're trying to be structured.
Well, my mantra is finite heartbeats, infinite possibilities.
Yes.
So
beautiful.
Thank you. What that means is that we have choices every day about how to invest our heartbeats.
Yes.
And the choices that we make, we have an infinite number of them.
Right.
How do we make those choices?
Correct.
What are the outcomes that we want?
Right.
And what are the values around which we choose to live?
Absolutely. And ultimately, you've taken a step further. You start making decisions of who you want to let in your life. Because I'll tell you,
Yes.
when you have to start making some conscious decisions on if you're going to start living your life a certain way or conducting yourself in a certain manner, professionally, personally, wherever the path that may lead, you're going to have to make some choices of those people that you're going to be around while doing it, right?
Yes.
You ultimately do, and I can, when you talk about experience over expectation, just briefly about myself, it's like I do martial arts, right? So even if you're never going to be the greatest martial artist in the world, right? And it's hard to do that because clearly I'm not. But the experience of taking martial arts versus your expectation of, I have a black belt, but I wouldn't trade the experience of training in martial arts, for not being Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? Because you're like, you're in this culture of things that you do. And at the end of the day, it's a historical art that you're still training in. And it's a wonderful thing to be a part of that medium.
Yes.
It really, truly is. Where can people go ahead, please?
So, I love that story because I'm a high performance driver. I like driving on racetracks.
Beautiful.
And the experience of it is just so enriching.
Yep.
That, it's far beyond, don't get me wrong, I like the checkered flag.
For sure.
I like it a lot.
For sure.
I like seeing people and other drivers in my rearview mirror.
Right.
But the actual experience of being on the track, of driving on the track, of mastering the physics of it is really, really, it's fascinating to me and very gratifying. And if we can live our lives that way, where 9 times out of 10, it's fascinating and gratifying and not, default, so to speak.
Right. It matters more that you actually had a chance to, because how many people are actually in that car right now? How many people could actually say they're doing that? There's very few people. So once you get that expectation that the experience mattered more than,
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm here and a lot of people aren't. It's the same thing when I was doing martial arts. I'm here and a lot of people don't do this. So I'm going to be living in the experience of this actual art that I'm taking, as opposed to not being the greatest martial artist that ever existed. So I always ask this question to all my guests. Where can people find you if they don't need me on this show? But where can people find Mary McCorvey?
MaryMcCorvey.com is the best place to find me. I also am on YouTube. I have a channel on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all the places that you find your podcast.
That's wonderful.
Thank you so much, Rashad, for having me on today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And like I said, I always tell this, to people who have compelling stories. I've been fortunate to be blessed with a lot of great guests. I love to have another part 2 because I think, what your story is not encapsulated in 30 minutes. So I really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Thank you.